Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, and I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Lots of people in the room already chatting. Makes me happy. Hello to everyone. Hello. Happy days to everybody. Busy, busy, busy. Yeah, it's busy everywhere, my friend, but I doubt that I am anywhere near as busy as you all are. I hope that all is going well. Hope that everybody's having a good one. Yesterday was rough. Today's better. Yesterday was pretty bad. Had a lot of plagiarism issues and then some. You guys don't care about all of that stuff. Hey, Grithar, how's it going? Yeah, I'm doing okay. Today was better, and tomorrow's Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday are the good stuff, right? Everybody's working for the weekend, right? Pretty much. Though I don't guess that there is such a thing as the weekend when you're in crunch time, is there? So, good to hear. Was there storm system or bad weather moving through your place, Graythar? I think I remember seeing you say something yesterday about that. Somebody hosted me. Did anybody catch who did that host so that I might say thank you? That happened while we were in our sort of intro phase, and it didn't pop up on my screen, so... Daria's hosting. Oh, hey Daria. Thank you for the host, by the way. Okay. It's an interesting topic tonight. I am very excited about this one. One of my favorite ancient cultures is the Persians. We talked about them last week, which was super exciting for me. And the Persian official religion, going all the way back to Cyrus the Great, is Zoroastrianism. It's one of the oldest religions that's still being practiced in the world. Couple thousand plus years old. It was raining quite a bit, and then a surprise thunderstorm. Oh yeah, those pop up during this time of the year. Well, at least they do over here in our world. I don't know how it works in yours. You tried to get him to call this one the Mask of Zoroastrianism. Yeah, that wasn't a bad one. That was definitely not a bad title. I will not poo-poo it. But I decided to go with Say No to Druj. We can call it the Mask of Zoroastrianism in spirit. That will be the honorary title for tonight's stream. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about talking about Zoroastrianism. It's a fascinating topic. It's a very interesting religion. I don't get to talk about it enough in my classes and when I teach. It's just... The importance of Zoroastrianism as a percentage of people on Earth was much higher in the ancient world than it is now. There are still Zoroastrians around, just not nearly as many. Several million. There are actually growing populations of Zoroastrianism in America. They have temples, several temples now. I have you on auto host, but it's mostly Art of Lee since he streams for 12 hours. Yeah, good old Lee. I like Art of Lee. That guy's got a great channel. I do not mind you auto hosting him at all. Not that I have any say so, Joey, and welcome, Joey, or Rorona, but I don't think he's seen One Piece. I have not seen One Piece. I caught that boat after it had already aired something like 100 episodes, and it's still going, so I doubt that I'll ever even try to catch up to One Piece. I know some of the characters, and I know that the guy that's the main character is like a stretchy dude, but it's about all I know. Episode 941 airs on Sunday. Are you joking, or is that actually how many episodes there are? I don't know whether or not that's a joke. That's how long One Piece has been running. Morning Dew, hello. This is a history stream. We are a group of people that hang around and chat about history. I am a college history professor for my day job, but I think that history is a lot cooler than a lot of people think it is. So we sit around and make bad jokes and talk about anime, and then we sneak some history in. So tonight's topic is Zoroastrianism, one of the more ancient religions on Earth. Last week we talked about Persia, so history. But welcome, Morning Dew. One Piece will never end. He said he's got 5 to 7 more years. Yeah, I no. Not even going to try. Not even going to try. Cool, I like educational streams better than the Bob streams. I like the art of painting. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you very much for the follow. You get to see what some people have described as the most awesome follow animation on Twitch. I'm a giant nerd, by the way, so we get lots of goofy stuff like that pop up randomly. All right. So anybody have anything off the top? Anybody want to run some channel points or ask some questions or bring anything up other than the fact that One Piece is going for like almost 1,000 episodes now? So we're pretty laid back, Morning Dew. Ask questions about it, whatever you want to. If you have a pop cultural joke or a bad pun, feel free to throw that in the mix. AutoHost works so that it hosts someone on your list that is online, either by rank or randomly, but it hosts the channel that's chosen until the stream is over before choosing a new one. So if Lee stops streaming now, it might suddenly pop up that I'm hosting you. I think I have David. Oh, okay. I got you. I've never actually sort of set anything with AutoHost. That seems a bit tricky. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and what's fascinating, how people back then believed in the Greek gods the same way people... Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the Greeks a little bit a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be talking about the Greeks coming back up in a couple of weeks as well. I think Odyssey is set in the either the Archaic period or the early Classical period. It's right around the time that we'll hit next time we come back around. I really like Assassin's Creed. I played Origins, is the last one that I've played. I have not played the newest one. History really does repeat itself. It kind of does. Okay, rank 3 things. Star Trek TOS, the original series, Star Trek The Next Generation, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Oh, wow. You're going to make me be angry at people, aren't you? That's an interesting question. Oh, and Steph Anomaly is continuing a gift sub from Graythar. Thank you, Steph Anomaly. I don't know why it isn't playing the fanfare for you, but I can solve that. Odyssey has Socrates as a hysterical character. Okay, so yeah, that's classical. Okay, so there are things that I like about all of those. Star Trek, the original series, of course, is classic. It introduced the world into so much cool stuff. The entire sort of high fiction or high science fiction genre is basically Star Trek, the original series. It's what made that approachable to pretty much anybody in the world. So you can't take anything away from the original series when it comes to that. The Next Generation was what I grew up with. I didn't watch a lot of the original episodes until I was sort of later on in life and could go back and watch them on reruns and stuff like that. So that sort of holds a nostalgia value for me. And Deep Space Nine has so many good politics. Like it's a much more thinky Star Trek, which I don't have a problem with. I like the idea of exploring sort of political ideas, especially in a sort of post-racial world where the new ideas of humanity all being sort of the same, that sort of Star Trek ideal. But I also like the pew-pews, and Deep Space Nine has some stuff where, you know, they go out and they shoot, and there's ships and there's fighting and stuff like that. But if I had to put them in a rank based on what I liked, I would probably go Next Generation, original series, Deep Space Nine. So that's my reasoning behind that. So I've got to do this. I don't know why it didn't pick up on continuing sub and play the little the stuff, but Steph Anomaly, this Spartacus is for you.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I am Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. You get to be Spartacus, dadgummit. If you're going to sub on my stream, you get to be Spartacus. Who is the Elon Musk of the blank period? So that's a great question. I don't know exactly what period that the blank is supposed to fill up. If we're talking about the period where Zoroastrianism starts to come up in the Persian world, the Elon Musk of that world is probably Cyrus the Great. He sort of set the world on its ear. I am Brian, and so is my wife. I'm not. We're all individuals. I'm not. Alrighty. Okay. So let's talk Zoroastrianism. And as always, if you have comments or anything like that, bring them. So the religion here is called Zoroastrianism. Sometimes you also see it referred to as Mazdaism. This is a little bit of an attempt to get away from the massive amounts of Greek influence that's on everything. Because Zoroastrianism presumes that the original prophet that started its name was Zoroaster, which is not actually accurate. Zoroaster is a Greek transliteration of his actual name, which is Zarathustra. I have a Mazda. Should I worship it? Probably not. But if you want to and it brings you happiness and it doesn't harm anybody else, you worship the devil out of that. Probably a bad pun, worship the devil out of it. I didn't even intend that for a habit, but anyway. Zoom. I thought about trying to work in the zoom, but it didn't work. So Zarathustra is the guy that is actually the guy that starts the religion, and I just realized that I have spelled his name horribly because I can't try to. I keep doing this thing where I try to talk and type at the same time. Zarathustra, blah blah blah. If you form a cult, you can get a tax write-off. That does take a lot of work to start a cult. You actually have to get thus spoke Zarathustra, right? But without the Nietzsche. You're better off starting a generic 501c3. We're a non-profit organization that just happens to be religious in nature. Also, Sprach Zarathustra, which is the German title for Nietzsche's book. Yeah, there we are. So Zarathustra is a guy who lived at an unknown period of time. And this is where stuff starts getting kind of weird. Like right off the bat, historical weirdness. There is not... That book was so awful. Aww. Nietzsche's not so bad. He's just sort of full of himself. But most people that write are full of themselves. I'm certainly full of myself. And I'm not trying to compare myself to Nietzsche. But there's a certain level of self-confidence, we'll put it that way, that it takes to write a book of philosophy of your own ideas. Right? So he literally is the embodiment of full of himself. Oh, don't pick on Nietzsche. He's not here anymore. So we don't know when Zarathustra was born. There are several theories about when he was born. One of them is based on like the ancient interpretation. So if you go to some really old Greek guys that are trying to explain Zoroastrianism to you, some of them think that he was born somewhere like 6000 BC. But that doesn't make any sense, because if he was born 6000 BC, none of his life would have made sense, because in 6000 BC we did not have big kingdoms, and we did not have cities, and we didn't have basically anything that looks like modern society at all. We had just recently figured out villages are a thing. So the 6000 BC mark is pretty clearly a goof that they made in the ancient world. There are two sort of what I would call more scholarly opinions of when this guy lived. One of them is based on the language of some of the scriptures of Zoroastrianism. There's a section called the Gathas, and we'll talk about them in just in a little while. But based on the language that they're written in, which is something called Old Avestan, when you compare Old Avestan to stuff like Sanskrit, which is what the Vedas are written in for Hindu beliefs, there's some similarities there, and some of the words that exist later don't show up in Gathic writing. So if we're going based on a linguistic approach of the Gathas, which, by the way, Zoroaster himself was supposed to have written, these are like the supposed writings that he was inspired to write when he had his encounter with Ahura Mazda, who is the kind of the good god of Zoroastrianism. So if we're going on a linguistic approach, he probably lived somewhere between 1500 and 1000 BC. And that's a lot more believable than the 6000 BC mark, because by 1500 there were kingdoms all over the place, and the region that he lived in when he was alive was populated and had cities and trade networks and things like that. But there's also just a purely sort of historical approach that kind of ignores some of the linguistic evidence, because even in ancient times, linguistic evidence can be manufactured. Just like today, if I wanted to write a story that looked like it was written, back in the, like what we might call Shakespearean English times, I could write a whole bunch of stuff that would look like Shakespeare wrote it. So sometimes people suggest that things were written to look older when they weren't actually as old, which is stuff that people do today, right? Document forgery and things like that are pretty common even in the modern world. So if we're going with this sort of purely historical approach based on context of historical documentation, not documentation, historical artifacts and things like that, there's a group of people that place Zarathustra being born somewhere between 700 and 500 BC. So if we're just being all-inclusive and bringing both of the groups in and saying, where's this guy born? Somewhere between 1500 and 500 BC. And that's a very broad period of time. I mean, it's a 1,000-year span. But we definitely know that by the time Cyrus the Great is doing all of his stuff, Zoroastrianism is already an accepted religion, and it's sort of already rolling, right? So there's that. So that's when he was born. and we can't really figure that out. So then the next question is, where is he born? And as you might expect, we don't really know that either. There are debates about where he was born. Most of the debates are going to be looking at this region right around here, which is, again, the Central Asia region, or what we would today call Eastern Iran, the modern-day country of Iran. Hey, Cave Geek, how's it going, man? Welcome to the stream. Everybody go follow Cave Geek. You're late again, aren't I? Nah. A Cave Geek is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to. Welcome, my friend. Like I said, everybody go follow Cave Geek. He makes really cool art. So, somewhere around in here. Central Asia, Iran. We don't really know. He arrives precisely when he wakes up from his nap. Fair enough. He's also a wizard. He has a magic wand that he uses to burn things with. So that's close enough, right? I don't know. He's a wielder of the sacred flame of Anur. Man, I'm getting really deep in the Tolkien lore tonight, aren't I? There we go. Fun times with the Tolkien stuff, though. So we don't know when he was born, and we don't know where he was born. But there are lots of stories about his life. And we're talking again about Zarathustra here. So Zarathustra, clearly not a wizard, by the way. Though he is sometimes pictured as being a guy with a sword with rays around him. But that's later, after he gets sort of mushed together with Mithra. Lots of fun gods tonight, by the way. So what's this guy's life like? Well, he grows up in a big family. His dad is a pretty rich farmer, agricultural pastoralist here. So we're raising big herds, sheep and goats and such. And he is the middle of 5 sons. So he's got 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers. And as you might expect, that's just, ugh. You're either getting beaten up on or teaming up with the older ones to beat up the younger ones. I don't know. It just doesn't really seem like it works for him. So by the time that he's 20, he decides to sort of strike out. He, at a very young age, had decided that because he was this 3rd son, that he probably wasn't going to get very much of the inheritance. So he decided, even at a very young age, to go into the priesthood. And he's being inducted into some version of a Central Asian or perhaps Vedic religion. Of course, when we're talking about anything in this area around that time period, we can't forget that India, right down here, is blowing and going with the Vedas, especially if we're going to accept the sort of younger time frame for him, somewhere between the 700s to the 500s. That would put him being born after the Vedas had already been compiled and written down. So the people in this Central Asian region and in Iran are going to have ethno-linguistic ties to people down in India already because of that big, Indo-European and Aryan migration. But they're also going to have religious ties because the Aryans, when they moved down into India, were already practicing a lot of these sort of Vedic religions. So he gets trained as a priest in some version of a Vedic religion. It's really impressive that India was able to develop Gundams that early. Did they have Gundams that early? Is the Indian Gundam Veda Gundam? Does he beat you back with his birch bark scrolls? I actually can't remember what India's Gundam was in G Gundam. Oh, the Veda processors. Oh, ha. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. Did India have a Gundam in G Gundam? Somebody Google that junk and tell me what it was. It probably showed up in like one scene in one episode. And it was probably super racially stereotypical. Double O's predictive computers. Yeah. I'm with you now. I missed that whole reference. Sorry about that. I lose 5 nerd points. I'm sure that I'll make them up by the end. Cobra Gundam. Okay. Yeah. There we go. That's not racist or anything. So he becomes a priest, and by 20 years old, he had already proven that he was very wise in the ways of the religion. So he goes off sort of sojourning around and teaching. And at one point, he is down by a riverside. Down by the riverside. It was a stereotypical snake charmer. There we are. So he's down by this river, and he's going through this sort of ritual washing ceremony. And he's purifying himself and purifying stuff. And there's this vision. He sees a vision. And standing in the middle of this vision is a being named Ahura Mazda. And Ahura Mazda is surrounded by this other group called the Amesha Spenta, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit. And Ahura Mazda greets Zarathustra and says, you are a good person. You have, done good things. You're living a righteous life. And I'm going to reveal the sort of the universal truth and the truth of the world to you. And I'm going to make you my prophet so that you can go into the rest of the world and teach them the good news. Kawasaki, you know what, man? I would absolutely love to be famous, but I'm also broke, so I can't really buy followers. But maybe if you could slip me some for free, I might be able to get you back on the back end. Maybe. I heard that he legally changed his name from Ahura Mazidi when he bought... Aww. Well done. Was it even big follows? I don't know. It might have been small follows. It could have... And see, the thing is, follows don't really even get you anything. It's the subs that get you the stuff. Alas. Ooh. Dropping the deletes and the ban hammers. Just... Thanks, mods. So Ahura Mazda reveals the truth to Zarathustra, and he's like, oh, right, this is it. And so he goes to teach, and he... Wait, I'm not getting paid? Sorry, Joey. No, man, I'm sorry. I'm officially a pro streamer. No, well, I mean, pro streamers get a lot more trolls than I do. That's the first troll that I've gotten in probably a dozen streams. Pro streamer. So Zarathustra has the problem that all prophets have. He goes back to his family and he goes back to his homeland and he starts preaching. And he's like, I have seen the way. The truth has been revealed to me. Convert to my teachings. And everybody's like, no, I don't like that very much. And he manages to convert some of his cousins. But I just sort of imagine like the leader of the original Zoroastrian following being like Cousin Jimmy. Like, yeah, man, that sounds good. Yeah, Ahura Mazda. Hey, that sounds great. What's he do? So you're not necessarily getting quality converts here. I don't know who the original converts were. They were some of his cousins. I'm sure they were fine people. I have an overactive imagination. Rednecks and hillbillies are timeless. Well, if you look at the area that we sort of singled out as his potential homeland, there's lots of hills in them there hills. So, and actually right around here, there are actually some of the most interesting and... Okay, I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm about to start talking about the grids, and they don't show up until the AD period. Stop me before I go off on a tangent. Pause. Bookmark. Come back to that one in about 2,000 years of history. Anyway. Stop. So Zarathustra has to leave because when he's preaching, he's doing the thing that all preachers that have new revelations do. He's going into the cities and he's telling these people, like, hey, those gods that you're worshiping, they're not good gods. They're not even actually gods. In fact, they're devas, which is a Vedic word for demon. And your gods are wrong, and you should stop worshiping their god and worship Ahura Mazda, who is the good god. Also, you're way too caught up on all this ritual stuff. Ritual's not what saves you. Being a good person is what saves you. And of course, this makes everybody kind of like hate this guy, and he actually ends up getting run out of town, which is the like prototypical story of basically every person that starts a religion, right? Everybody ends up getting run out of town. Like Zarathustra gets run out of town, Confucius gets run out of town, that Jesus guy gets run out of town. Everybody's getting run out of town. Muhammad got run out of town. It's a bit of a sort of a required rite of passage if you're starting a new religion. You got to get run out of town. So what's he going to do? Well, he wanders around for a little while, and he ends up falling in with a king, who is a king of one of these little kingdoms in the Central Asia or Eastern Iran. And his name is King Vishtaspa. And Vishtaspa has means. He's a rich guy. He also has a following because, again, he's a king. And he really likes Zarathustra. He's like, dude, hit me with some of this knowledge. Seems like this is good stuff. So what ends up happening is that Vishtaspa invites Zarathustra into his court. And Zarathustra becomes basically his right-hand spiritual advisor. And this is sort of the patron that Zarathustra needed to get the ball rolling. Health to you. Bienvenidos. And Zarathustra lives out the rest of his life from about the age of 30 all the way until 77. I think the exact date is that he lived until he was 77 and 40 days old before he died. And he gets married and he has kids, and Vishtaspa and Vishtaspa's wife, the queen, are very good to him. And the people of this kingdom all adopt the teachings of Zarathustra. We don't really know where the kingdom was, and it's hard to identify a King Vishtaspa archaeologically speaking. So, are you saying that Vishtaspa is like a sneeze noise? I could see that. Anyway, so this is sort of the original core of Zoroastrian followers. And, of course, it spreads from there. The region itself is pretty close to where we were talking about the original Persians showing up. So if we're talking about like this Eastern Iran region or Central Asia region, Parsis, Persepolis, modern country or modern city, where the Persians are going to call their original home, is just right here. So it's very close. There was a lot of connections and trade routes running between those areas. It would have not been very hard for ideology to flow along those trade routes and get down into the Persian area. And of course, this is going to be, again, the official religion of the Persian leadership. Cyrus the Great, when he becomes emperor of basically everything, is going to establish this as the official religion of the Persian Empire, which of course is greatly going to expand the range of Zoroastrianism effectively all over the ancient world. By the time we get to Darius, of course, this guy was all over the place. So I've neglected showing you images, so let's show some images. So this guy is Zarathustra, and it's kind of hard to find images of this guy. Part of the problem with finding images is that they don't necessarily like they don't have a problem with doing images, but it's not really that big of a deal for a lot of people in Zoroastrianism. Symbolism is going to show mostly in stuff like decorative art. You're going to get some pictures and stuff. This is actually not even probably from a Zoroastrian source. This is most likely from a Christian source based on the artistic style. It's probably from somewhere in the 4 to 500s or maybe 600s AD, probably from somewhere over on the the Roman border with the Sassanid and Persian area. But we sort of see a few things here that are going to be recognizable. First, we have him holding a scroll, which is representation of knowledge. And he's also got this really cool hat. There's lots of neat headwear or headgear in Zoroastrianism, and we'll look at some pictures of some people later on that are going to have neat little hats. So another problem with finding imagery of Zarathustra himself is that, again, we don't really know necessarily where to look, and also a lot of the sort of original Zoroastrian images and temples and stuff got pretty badly wrecked when the Persian Empire of the Sassanids fell to the original Rashidun Caliphate of Islam. Islam did not look at Zoroastrianism as favorable and basically tried to do whatever it could to wipe it out. So a lot of the stuff has been destroyed since then, was destroyed at that time. That's in the 500-600s AD. All right, so there's Zarathustra. Okay, and then a little bit about his life, but let's talk a little bit about the beliefs. And I mentioned this guy, Ahura Mazda, which has nothing to do with an actual vehicle, unless you're looking for a vehicle that's going to get you to the good place. And then Ahura Mazda is the way to go. So he is your sort of good old-fashioned, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-good creator god. He created everything in the universe, and he originally made everything pure and good. And we'll talk about the guy that came around and screwed everything up later on. But Ahura Mazda is the sort of central good figure of Zoroastrianism. And he looks like this. If I can get the picture to switch. Come on now. There we go. There's good old Ahura Mazda. And you might think a few things right off the bat just looking here. Number one, that looks sort of Assyrian. And he has wings. Zoroastrianism gives you wings. And a Nushanka. Yeah. So this is Ahura Mazda. Note the cool hat. Again with the cool hat. He drinks Red Bull. He is doing a purification ritual here where he has a vessel of water and a leaf, and he is doing some blessing here. He's got some nice clothes, and he's standing on a lion, which is the representation of the bad guy, whose name is Angra Mainyu. We'll talk about him in just a bit. So the reason this has a lot of Assyrian influence is exactly what you might think. A lot of the region that the Persians took over used to be part of the old Assyrian Empire. And those guys were super cool and were really, really big on art. And we talked last week about how the Persians really sort of synthesized a lot of different artistic styles and then kind of created their own. That's just a picture of Ahura Mazda where there's a pretty obvious Assyrian artistic influence. So Ahura Mazda is kind of interesting because he is also going to... he is an individual, so he is Ahura Mazda, but there are also other divine beings that emanate from him. And this is a little kind of weird, But effectively, because he is so good, aspects of him can sort of take form on their own. And these are what are called the Amesha Spentas. This translates to holy immortals. And so these are the things that are immortal in creation. And there are a number of them. One of them is good mind, the Spenta of the good mind. So, keeping your mind thought. Truth, devotion, justice, wholesomeness, and immortality. So these are the things that sort of emanate from Ahura Mazda. And they are unique to themselves. There's a name for all of those. I've translated them into English. So like good mind has a whole name for it. That's beside the point. Truth has a name for it. And each of these can be beings on their own, so they can show up, like the being of the good mind is actually the one that sort of beckons to Zarathustra in this moment of conversion where he meets Ahura Mazda. The good mind calls to him and brings him over to the sort of the meeting with Ahura Mazda. So Ahura Mazda is Voltron. No, that's actually a fair metaphor to try in this scenario. But if we take that metaphor and say, is he Voltron? That would mean that Voltron would only exist when you had all of these parts put together. And that doesn't jive with the way that Zoroastrians view Ahura Mazda. I don't know if there's a good nerd reference that I can put here. Ahura Mazda exists, and because Ahura Mazda exists, all of these other things exist as well. And he would exist, and I say he because Ahura Mazda is frequently pictured as male, even though it's not necessarily anthropomorphic god. Sometimes it's just Ahura Mazda is the sort of archetypical deity of neither male nor female. And we'll get to equality in a little bit. That's actually a pretty important belief in Zoroastrianism. So if we say that Ahura Mazda is Voltron, that means he only exists when you put all the Amesha Spentas together, and that's not true. It's more like if I made a bunch of photocopies of my face and then built AIs around them and put them on fake little rolly cart things like they did that one time on Big Bang Theory, the little virtual personal things, whatever they called them. I would exist by myself, but I had created all of these other things, and they wouldn't exist without me, and I could shut them down whenever I wanted to, but they could do things independently as well. It's a bad metaphor. It's hard to kind of explain how this all works out without getting really, really deep into the sort of the nitty-gritty of stuff. Because it also gets a little bit more convoluted, because the Amesha Spentas are not only beings, but they are also viewed as goals. So in Zoroastrianism, you are supposed to attempt to attain these statuses of having devotion and justice and wholesomeness and immortality. And once you attain these things, you are said to sort of have part of these Amesha Spentas within you. But it's not like they're possessing you. It's just like you have kind of added to their goodness by getting yourself in that right state. So everybody should aspire to be like the Amesha Spentas. And by being like the Amesha Spentas, you should also then be like Ahura Mazda, which is, of course, being of a good mind and of being truthful. Because one of the most important concepts of all of Zoroastrianism is the concept of Asha, which is goodness and truth. And this is something that is sort of the ultimate goal of everything. You're supposed to have good mind, good thoughts, good actions. You're supposed to be a true person speaker of truth, no falsehoods, and you're supposed to believe in good things and go after good things. And Ahura Mazda is the source of Asha, and he is the ultimate sort of model of Asha. So this goes into a lot of different things. Asha is not just being a good person, but also treating people good, or treating people well, treating people with goodness, also treating the world with goodness. There's a lot of influence inside Zoroastrianism on being good to the planet and not destroying things that don't need to be destroyed and keeping nature clean and pure, because that's the way that Ahura Mazda made it in the first place. So treating people more gooder. Right, just be more gooder to people. That's pretty basic. So a lot of sort of modern people that are looking for perhaps historic examples to use as a little bit of influence today, they say, look, especially people that are, concerned about the planet, concerned about things like global warming, concerned about pollution and things like that. They say, look, even people all the way back in time, they said, that this Asha is not just being good to people, but it's being good to the planet. And we're not being good to the planet right now. Ahura Mazda made the planet perfect, and we are screwing it up. So back off on that. Hey, a religion I can actually get behind. I am not here to preach. I am not here to convert anybody. But if you're interested in reading some more, I can point you towards some scriptures and some sort of jumping off places. I'd be happy to answer any questions now or later. All right, so that's Ahura Mazda. But as you might expect, Ahura Mazda is not alone. There's another one, and its name is Angra Mainyu, or in later versions, in the younger Avesta, you see him referred to as Ahriman. This is the bad guy, and he is almost always pictured as a beast. The lion here that Ahura Mazda is sort of, not Saruman, Saruman. Ahriman, the flying eyeball thing that's a bad guy in Final Fantasy 6 and 7. There's a deep cut for you. But does Zoroastrianism say anything about materia? Joey beat me to it. There's actually a lot of interesting overlap between philosophy and religion and Final Fantasy 6 and 7. Anyway, so this is Angra Mainyu. He's being stomped on by Ahura Mazda because Ahura Mazda is the good guy, right? But here's another image. This is one of a very few pieces of temple that we have left from a long time ago. And as you can see, it has been pieced back together. The temple itself was destroyed pretty badly. What we see here is Ahura Mazda attacking another spirit of good. I believe this is Jeti. Jeti is one of the Yazatas. We'll talk about Yazatas in just a moment. There are other sort of demi-good spirits, kind of like angels and demons, but it's a little bit different than that. So Ahura Mazda is almost always being shown as a beast, as some sort of very angry, evil thing, because he's the bad guy. The weird thing about the concept of Angra Mainyu is that it doesn't always show up the way that it has been interpreted. If you look at the oldest part of the Zoroastrian scriptures, Angra Mainyu, it literally translates to the destructive mind. So the oldest part of the scriptures that are attributed to Zarathustra say that the worst thing in the universe is the destructive mind. Am I saying Ahura Mazda instead of Angra Mainyu? My bad. Angra Mainyu, bad guy. Ahura Mazda, good guy. So Angra Mainyu is the destructive mind. And in the Gathas, this oldest part, it's not necessarily treated as an individual. It's not given sort of the role of angry man, bad guy. Got it. Yeah, pretty much. Originally, it's not depicted as an individual actor. Some people say that the Gathas, the oldest part of the Zoroastrian scripture, consider it to be almost like an Amesha sort of this force of bad, but not necessarily an individual or a demigod or a demiurge. But the longer Zoroastrianism develops, and especially during what we would consider probably the height of Zoroastrianism under the later Parthian and Sassanid empires, Angra Mainyu is an equal but opposite to Ahura Mazda. So Ahura Mazda is the source and positive for everything, and Angra Mainyu is the source of bad and negative for everything. And they're sort of the two halves of the same coin. That has been abandoned a lot in modern Zoroastrianism. Modern Zoroastrians are, well, I should say that there is an element within modern Zoroastrianism that promotes the idea that the original Zoroastrian version of Zoroastrianism was a monotheistic religion, and that there was no bad god, there was just a good god. That has been met with arguments from both within and from outside the Zoroastrian community. I am not here to speak for the Zoroastrian community. I'm just trying to let everybody know sort of the conversations around this stuff. But for the majority of the time that Zoroastrianism is practiced, Angra Mainyu is considered an evil being. He is the ruler of the Devas, who are these sort of negative, bad demon spirits. He is the bringer of death. He is the bringer of sadness. And he is the source of Druj, which is the bad pun of our title tonight. Say no to Druj. Druj is deceit, which of course is the opposite of truth. So Druj is like the opposite of Asha. And all of the source of deceit and evil in the world comes from Angra Mainyu. So if you read the scriptures, especially if you read like the creation accounts that are in the Avesta, there's lots. Say no to druids. I mean, druids are okay. They're not as super powerful as everybody thinks they are, unless you're talking about D&D druids. And everybody wants to take on bear shape, right? Or what about Diablo druids? They can turn into wolves. I guess it depends on whether or not you need a tank or if you need a healer. Either way, a druid's not necessarily going to help you out very much. So if you read the creation account that's in the Avesta, the kind of the Zoroastrian scripture book, everything, the creation account always sort of goes like this, and it's like, and Ahura Mazda made the earth and made everything beautiful. And then the next line is, and then Angra Mainyu came by and he did something horrible. Like, and Ahura Mazda made the flowers. And then Angra Mainyu came behind and made bugs that would eat the flowers and pestilence. And like, this is some stuff that's actually there. Those pesky druids in their hippie ways, they don't understand personal space and consent. They just want to love, man, right? We have a lot of lady viewers in the chat. So one of the things in the creation account is that Ahura Mazda comes by and creates women, and they're beautiful, and and gives them the ability to create child, which is sort of seen as like this holy thing. And then Angkor Manyu comes by and goes, yeah, but they're going to have menstrual cycles and it's going to hurt like the devil when they have those babies. So if you ever had problems around that time of the month, it's because of Angkor Manyu. Sorry, ladies. You know who to blame. What a jerk. Yeah, he's the purveyor of all things that are evil. So he's a bad guy. And say no to Druj. Just do the right thing and say yes to Asha. Ahura Mazda and Angkor Manyu are not the only sort of divine beings. There are other things that are existing out there. The good side of the coin are Yazatas, and the bad side are Devas. Dare, say no to Druj. Right, it's bad for you. So Yazatas are lesser spirits of good. They were created by the creation of Ahura Mazda, and they have a lot to do with very, very specific things that are good, like particular actions that are good, particular thoughts that are good, and there are dozens of these Yazatas. And there are also similar dozens of Devas. So Deva, the word, is actually a Vedic word that gets used a lot in the Hindu scriptures of the Vedas, but also a lot of Indo-European words, including here in Zoroastrianism. And Deva is going to be, ironically, the root of the word diva in English, which is why diva is not necessarily a compliment, because it sort of means an embodiment of evil power that is sort of self-centered and self-focused. Pumpkin spiced Yazada. Aww. If I admit that there's a pumpkin spice Yazada, does that also mean that there's like an Uggs Yazada or a non-seasonal scarf Yazada? I don't want to go into the pumpkin spice Yazada business. Sorry. One interesting thing about the Yazatas, though, is that because there were so many of them that were out there, by the time you got to the Persians taking over everything, the Persians had a calendar system drawn up that was actually pretty elaborate. And every day of the month was devoted to one of these Yazatas. And this was done for a couple of reasons. Number one, to make sure that every one of the Yazatas was able to get a little bit of recognition. But number two, also to just try to help you remember all of these, right? There is a pumpkin spice everything. I don't think that there's a pumpkin spice Yazada. But so the Devas are very frequently considered to be the gods of other religions. Remember, one of the things that Zarathustra was really pushing at the beginning of his teachings was that all of the gods that people were worshiping at the time were the wrong gods. And they were actually Devas who had tricked people into worshiping them, even though they weren't really the right way to worship. So the Hindu gods are considered Devas by the Zoroastrians, and you can see how this goes. Basically, anything that doesn't fall within the realm of Zoroastrian good that can be sort of given the status of a divine or deity-like being is going to end up being a Deva. But some of these Yazatas actually get very, very influential. And I can show you an image here that sort of shows this. So this is an incredibly famous relief. Relief meaning piece of art. It's in Iran. I would love to go see it. I can't go see it. But what we have here is This king right here in the middle is a Sasanian Persian king named Shapur. And he is being bestowed with power by Ahura Mazda. Again, note Ahura Mazda has the cool hat, has the wings kicking on, the nice robes. But there's also this guy. I think I remember Devas from the video game Dungeon Siege 3. Yeah, Devas is a pretty common word. It gets picked up to mean bad thing a lot. It's all over the place. I've never actually played Dungeon Siege 3, though. If it's any good, let me know. But this guy right here is what I want to sort of bring your attention to. This guy is Mithra, who starts off as sort of a kind of an early Vedic deity. I like the Kardashian Devas. Oh, let's not go there. Kardashians, by the way, are Armenian by descent, and the ancient Armenians were pretty big Zoroastrians. So, interesting little tie there. There's a free little history nugget for you. Devas is mentioned in Tibetan Buddhist teachings too. Yeah. So the Vajrayana Buddhists that are in Tibet have a lot of overlap with Hindu stuff as well. The Vajrayana Buddhists don't have a set canon, so they actually read a lot of texts that are not what you might consider sort of traditional Hindu texts. Oh, you don't like them? Okay. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is this guy. This is Mithra, who was originally sort of on this level of the Yazada, but we see him here being the same size as Ahura Mazda. And Mithra is the god of the sun, or one of the gods representing the sun. You see the great rays of the sun sort of emanating from his head. He's also got this wicked sword that he's always pictured with. And Mithra actually goes on to be one of the biggest of the sort of Central Asian gods that gets out. There are Mithra cults all over the world in the ancient world. They go all the way up into like England, down into Africa. You see Romans having... Oh, shoot, I should have shown you pictures of Mithraeums that I've been to. Way to think about that after the fact, dum-dum. I could have put on the adventure ad. Alas. Anyway, so Mithra becomes a sort of a cult following in a lot of places, but he was not originally considered like a god in Zoroastrianism. He's just kind of one of these Yazadas that was like a good thing to have around, like the sun is good, right? But he wasn't on par with Ahura Mazda, but he becomes more popular than Ahura Mazda in a lot of other places. So you can kind of spin this out a little bit. We all heard him say it. I revoke the belief that Fid likes the Kardashians. I unsaid what I said, so now we can all be fine. So, was biblical Simon a Mithra worshiper, or am I misremembering? Are you talking about Simon Magus? If so, there is a potential that he was. So the word magi, let me type this real quick so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. This is going to be a little bit of an aside, but I think it's an important one. The word magi was the word that was used and is still used in certain circles to describe a high-level Zoroastrian priest. And a lot of these... Dun, 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 dun. Thank you, Alexander, and welcome. So the story I believe that you're referring to is the guy that is called Simon Magus, or Simon the Wizard, or Simon the Magician, who sort of approached the disciples and tried to kind of buy his way into being able to do miracles and stuff. And if that's the case, the word magi in that scenario is not necessarily referring to his belief in any sort of Zoroastrian or Mithraic ideology, but the word was used so frequently at that time to mean Mithraic or Zoroastrian religion that people back then would have understood that it's this guy trying to do secret magic stuff. So it had at that point become a term of basically anybody that wanted to do secret hocus pocusy kind of things, because a lot of the Zoroastrian ceremonies and things of that nature were not really open to the public, and they kind of kept them under wraps. So it was always like, ooh, spooky. And of course, magi is the word that we use today, magic and magician. Fun little extra little nugget for you there. The three wise men who came to visit Jesus are referred to as the three magi. They were called magi because they were almost certainly Zoroastrian priests. They came from the east. If we're looking at where Jesus was born here, according to the story in what is today modern-day Israel, coming from the east is, guess what? Persia. Magi are Persians. They had lots of money because Persia was rich as a junk at that point. And they knew that there was something funky going on with the stars, because one of the things that the Zoroastrian priesthood did was keep up with the calendar, which means that you got to keep your eyeballs on the stars, and you got to be able to predict things like eclipses and movements of the the constellations and time and stuff. So that always blows some people's brains when I say that Jesus was visited first by three Zoroastrian fire-worshipping priests that knew about him because they were big into astrology, and that kind of hurts some people. I hope it didn't hurt you, but it's true. So, based on that story, it's true. So you can make up your mind about what you believe on your own. It's not mine to teach you. Okay, so the Yazatas and the Devas are things. Other beliefs, including one big one that's sort of important in the time period that we're talking about, free will. Some people that are religious scholars and anthropologists and historians credit Zoroastrianism with the creation of the idea of free will. This idea that human beings have a right to choose, and that that's going into your argument arsenal. If you want more bullets for your argument arsenal, just put me on speed dial. I enjoy arguing more than I should. So free will. This comes from the ultimate belief in Zoroastrianism that man is good. So the basic concept is that man was created by Ahura Mazda, and I say man here, but I do mean humankind. I should start saying humankind. So humans are good, according to the sort of larger Zoroastrian concept. It's the deceitful mind, or Anger Manu, that screws things up. So if humans have a sort of base nature of goodness, this gives them the recognition of good versus evil. And it is therefore humankind's choice to use free will to either choose to follow and seek Asha, or choose to accept Druj. And this is where the sort of the three big important concepts of Zoroastrianism come in: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. These are the three things that you are supposed to choose. You're supposed to think good thoughts, you're supposed to speak good words, and you're supposed to do good deeds. But you have the free will to not do that. But it is important in Zoroastrianism that the cumulative effort of all humans on Earth be focused towards good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Because by doing that, humans literally increase the amount of Asha in the universe, and they decrease the effect of Druj in the universe. It's very interesting. We don't always look into what Magi really meant. Yeah, most people don't. Free willy. Yeah, exactly. You bring the orca back out to the sea, which was a good deed, right? Based on good thoughts. So one thing that's also kind of interesting around this time, if you look at a lot of the other religions that were sort of popular during this period of time, many of them believe in monasticism, being a monk, going off and focusing on stuff. Yeah, especially this is true in a lot of the Hindu belief sets and some of the Buddhists as well. You do your monastic thinking. You go off and sit in your cell and you do your thing. This is very popular in Christianity for quite some time and still in circles today. The Zoroastrians don't encourage monasticism. In fact, they openly discourage it because they believe that you should not sort of put yourself in a bubble. You should be out among people and you should be doing things to not only help yourself but help other people. So they don't really like the idea of just little communities of people sitting in either isolation or in small pockets, just devoting themselves to the study of Ahura Mazda. They say, no, you need to be out amongst people. You need to be talking and thinking and doing. Orthodoxy, orthologia, orthopraxy. I'm not going to say anything, but I think you can interpret the finger gun meaning there, bud. So free will is a really important concept in Zoroastrianism. But there's also this concept called dualism. And this is a concept that has sort of made a lot of people really question what sort of religion Zoroastrianism is. Some people say that they are monotheistic. They say that Ahura Mazda is the only good god. That makes them monotheistic. They have one god. Other people go, well, no, look, they have Ahura Mazda, then they have all the Amesha Spenta, that's like 7. Then they have all the Yazadas, that's like, 40-something. So they have lots of gods. They're polytheistic. But some people go back to this dualism. And dualism, of course, is based around the concept of two and the concept of good versus evil. And they say that, no, Zoroastrianism is a dualist religion and it has two gods. It has Ahura Mazda and it has Angra Mainyu because they're always butting heads. So this concept of dualism is played out on every level of Zoroastrianism. There's the sort of big macro level, like if you zoomed out and looked at the world on like a universal scale, you're going to have the ultimate battle between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu. And they're going to be duking it out in the cosmos, in the universe, in the spiritual realm, in the physical realm, and, over all of time. But if you look at this even on the micro level, this is something that happens inside of your own mind. Because, again, if we have free will, even on the micro level, you have that little angel and your demon on your shoulder, right? You have Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu on your shoulders. And they're whispering in your ears and they're telling you to do the good thing or do the bad thing. So this dualism exists even on the level of like the individual mind inside of Zoroastrianism. This is the AiH versus Druj concept that goes on inside your brain. And it's an important concept. So that makes sense, especially the concept of how do you qualify Zoroastrianism. And honestly, I'm going to say this, and this might even surprise some people based on, my love of argumentation. I don't think it's necessarily important to try to stick a label on them. Like, I don't think that it's a requirement that every religion have a label that neatly fits it. I don't think we have to say it is monotheistic or it is dualistic or it is polytheistic. I don't think we have to. We can just say, this is what Zoroastrianism is, and here's what, they believe, and here's what they say they believe, and here's what they do. And I think it's okay to just say that they are a religion. They have a lot of levels of things, and it's okay, right? You're just thinking that it's far more complex than that. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, anytime that we talk about religion on the stream here, I am simplifying stuff. I am not a scholar that has practiced this my entire life. There are a lot of pieces of this puzzle that I'm sort of shrinking down into boxes that I think are easier to talk about. It is what it is. Exactly. I think it's fair to say that most things are not as easily distilled into single word definitions. Absolutely. I think that's a great point. Yeah. Okay, so this good and evil, though, does lead us to an interesting concept of Zoroastrian beliefs, and one of the things that I'm honestly most excited about talking about. Frashokoreti. Another funny word. What does that mean? Frashokoreti is the final judgment. That's right. It's the Zoroastrian apocalypse. One of the things that I really enjoy is Frashokoreti edible? No. I don't think that you want to eat the apocalypse. Another title I floated for this, so fresh and so clean. Yeah. I liked that one as well. That played to my love of rap music, especially Outkast. I quite like Outkast. I mentioned them in class today, and I got this. Can I get my order of lasagna with fresh already? I wonder if you ordered that, what they would come out with. That would be an interesting thing to do, just like throw random words. Okay. So, Frashokoreti is the final judgment, and in the world here of Zoroastrianism, there is an apocalypse. And what I was trying to say is that I really enjoy I enjoy reading about and studying other people's religions. But what I really enjoy is apocalyptic literature. I love reading accounts of the end of the world. There's an actual study that's called eschatology. That's the study of the apocalyptic literature stuff. And I love it. It's a weird little thing that I really enjoy. Sir, all we had in the back was this tactical nuke. Only the restaurant at the end of the universe. I got you. I don't have a towel with me, though. I hope that's going to be okay. If I ever open a restaurant, I'll add a single entry for dessert hidden in the menu called Frashokoreti. Some of them are pretty metal. Some of them are pretty metal. And it's ironic that you mentioned metal, and I'll get to the metal in just a moment. Just don't panic. So, in the final judgment, or in Frashokoreti, the ultimate battle between Ahura Mazda and Angkor Manyu goes down, and on the side of the good, on the Ahura Mazda side, you get this figure called the Salshent. Who's seen the first Dune trailer? Oh, dude, I saw the Dune trailer. It's awesome. So the Salshent is another one of these terms that has sort of an interesting meaning. If we look at the oldest part of the scriptures, the word Salshent just means good person. Well, I mean, it doesn't exactly mean good person. I'm sort of contemporizing it here, but it's just a word for a person that is good. So anybody can be a Salshent in the original texts, but over time, especially in the later or the younger parts of the Avesta, the Salshent is the Messiah. And this is the person who is going to lead the forces of Ahura Mazda to fight the forces of Angkor Manyu. And one of the important roles of the Salshent is to raise all of the dead. Because after Angkor Manyu is defeated, yeah, it's Muad'Dib. Exactly. After Angkor Manyu is defeated in the big battle, the Salshent raises everyone that has ever lived, and there is the final judgment. And it's going to be really funny that Arcadian brought up metal, because there is a trial that is the final judgment. And the righteous and those that have followed Asha are going to have a much easier time, and those that follow Druj are going to have a much harder time. But what happens is that the Saoshyant raises the dead, and then all of the metal in the earth sort of bubbles up to the top of the earth in liquid form, and everyone that is alive and has ever lived has to wade across this river of molten metal. And those that are righteous and full of Asha will feel just a warm sensation, and it will be like warm milk to soothe their soul. But the evil, the people that are full of Druj whilst wading across this molten metal river, will be tortured for the entire duration of their crossing, and it will take them a very long time to do it. And the metal will kind of like stick to you and burn you more based on how bad you were. So yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. It's really interesting. So in the world of the undead and the end of the world stuff, there are lots of river symbols and like crossing over the river symbols. But this one is one of my favorites. The Frasho Careti Molten Metal River. That's pretty wicked stuff. I really enjoy it. It's an interesting metaphor for purification, because to make a metal pure, of course, you boil it and then you skim off the impurities, and at the end you have a pure metal. But there's this image of this molten metal purifying the human soul, right? That the people that are full of the wickedness will have it burned out of them, quite painfully, by the way. So be good in life and follow Asha. Say no to Druj, kids. And then after they get to the other side, that's a bit like Jehovah's Witnesses Armageddon minus the melted metal river. Yeah, very similar. Does walking over hot coals come from that? I don't think so. I would bet that walking over hot coals has something to do with an original religious intent. I don't know where it comes from specifically, though. That's a good question. I can think of a couple of... I know that in some cultures, the hot coal thing is a rite of passage into adulthood. I don't know if it came directly from that or not. I think that might have arisen in different cultures at different times. I don't know if I could tie it all back to this particular belief set, because I know that there are a lot of like Pacific Islander people that do coal walking as rites of passage. Some people in Southeast Asia as well. I think that's a great question, though. I would be interested in digging that up. So I'm not sure. Okay, so after you have been raised from the dead, and after you have made it to the other side of the river, regardless of whether or not it felt like nice, pleasant, warm milk to you, or whether or not you got burned the whole way across, there is this sort of final phase of the earth, the final stage of the earth, where human beings, one and all of them, are made to be like the Amesha Spenta. They no longer have any physical needs, so like you don't have to sleep or eat. You don't ever get sick again. There's no such thing as pain. Bene Gesserit, Prana Bindu, total body control stuff. Kind of, sort of. You're also immortal, and the earth is kind of a utopian place at that point, because all of the wickedness will have been completely destroyed. By the way, that wicked cool river of metal ends up flowing down into Angra Mainyu's domain or abode and scorching all of them to death. And Angra Mainyu is completely destroyed by the giant molten river of metal. Cool stuff. But this concept of equality and utopia is really important to Zoroastrians. And I said we would get back to this, and I think this is the right place to do it. Zoroastrians are very big on equality of not just people, but also of gender. There are female Zoroastrian priests. There are male Zoroastrian priests. They believe that since everybody will be the same one day anyway, because Ahura Mazda will sort of glorify all human beings and bring them to this sort of ultimate Amesha level, that if we are to be like Ahura Mazda, we should be treating everybody equally. So there's a lot of emphasis on equality of the genders in Zoroastrianism. Yeah, lots of metal. So, interesting little thing about that. Okay, so... Oh, I forgot to show this image here. I have another image. I have several other images. It's kind of hard, though, to show images of some of this stuff. Like, there's not a good image of a Salshent because we don't really know what it looks like, or if it's a male or a female. It's hard to talk about Frasho Coretti because there's not really good images of it. I can show you this, though, which is called a Frawar, which is an image that's sort of been adopted as kind of like the official image of Zoroastrianism. What you see here is one of the Azadas sort of merged with this larger eagle image here. You see this on most Zoroastrian temples. Again, this has been one that has been reconstructed from pieces. You can tell that this has been pretty badly damaged and put back together. But even on modern Zoroastrian temples, you can still see this image. And I'll show you a picture of that in just a bit. So I've mentioned a couple of times now their scriptures. Let's talk about those just a little bit. I realize that I'm already sort of out of time. I knew this was going to be long because I really like this stuff. So if you need to bug out because you got to go something, I understand. If you're going to hang around with me, I'd appreciate that too. We're getting towards the end phase here. And if it makes you feel any better, Tuesday's stream next week is probably going to be a little short. So I'm borrowing from Tuesday to talk more about Zoroastrianism. There are 5 Gathas. These are the oldest parts of the scripture that I've been referring to. These were the ones that are supposedly written by Zarathustra way back in time. They're written in something called the Old Avestan language, of which I have a picture that I can show you. I always like showing writing. I'm very fascinated with how writing works and how it looks. So this is Avestan writing. It's from a passage of the Avesta. I don't know exactly what it says, but I really think this is cool stuff. It is a kind of a really interesting transition from Sanskrit language into what will be Arabic written language. If you know what Sanskrit looks like and you know what Arabic looks like, this is kind of like right in the middle. I really like the way that this stuff looks. It's a very pretty language. Just written. I get interested in stuff like that. I'm kind of weird. So there are 5 Gathas. These are the parts of the scripture that Zarathustra wrote himself. They are the oldest part of the Avesta. What's the language? Old Avestan. Yeah. I like how it looks too, very flowy. Yeah, like I love that how it looks like it's kind of flowing from one part to the next. That's really interesting stuff. So these existed for quite some time prior to the compilation of what is the modern scripture of Zoroastrianism, which we call the Avesta. I can hang around for some time. It'll be the last stream I can catch for a while. Oh, Grethar, yeah, I know you got to switch back to day shift. You'll be missed, my friend. And hopefully the VODs are some comfort. So the Avesta is something that you can Google. Like right now, if you wanted to go to Google and type in Avesta, you could get a copy of this stuff. It's full text translated online. You can read it. You can go read all the cool creation story stuff and figure out how bad Angkor Manyu is. But the book itself was compiled. What's the language? Is it Indo-Iranian? Yeah, it's I guess it's based on Vedic. It has a lot of relationship with the Vedic language. It's very popular between about 1500 to 1000 BC, but it gets transitioned into a newer language that's just called Avestan. So Old Avestan stops being used, and then they use New Avestan, and that pops up sometime after about 1000 BC. So, yeah. Good question. I'm sorry I missed that originally. So the Avesta is compiled by the Sassanid Persians in the 200s AD, and it's going to have the Gathas inside it, but there are also other Zoroastrian scriptures that had been compiled after the Gathas, and it's got a lot of other sections too. It's really long, so challenge accepted if you're going to read that one. And what's really kind of sad about the Avesta as a book of scripture, we have very, very little of it left. It's pretty evident that a large portion, some people estimate up to 3/4 of the Avesta, have been lost to time. And we get that number from looking at ancient commentaries, because even way back in time, there were people that wrote scriptural commentaries that would refer to specific passages of the Avesta. And based on the passages that they reference, we can estimate how much of the Avesta we have lost. And it's somewhere between half and 3/4 of the Avesta no longer exists. And part of this is because very large portions of it were memorized by the priests. So once the priesthood sort of got killed and died, you lost big chunks of that. But also, again, the Zoroastrian religion was targeted very, very heavily for not being Muslim or not being a people of the book. So Christianity and Judaism had a little bit of a lighter sentence under Islam because they were considered people of the book. The Zoroastrians were not. They were considered pagan, and they were targeted for basically extermination. I just got puppy-nosed in the elbow. Hello, puppy. Oh, do you want to just come up and see me? Oh, this is a free puppy. Hello, Kaylee. What's going on? Oh, thank you. Oh, hello. What's going on, puppy? What are you up to? Did you just wake up from a nap or something and you heard me talking and you want to come see me? Okay. That's a good girl. Oh, now I'm having to scratch the booty. Okay. Well, I'm on stream right now. Do you want to come back up here and see me again? No, you're going to stretch? Okay. I just ate lots of good poop. I can now give you face kisses. She hasn't been outside, so hopefully she hasn't eaten poop. Okay. So, again, we've lost a lot of the Avesta. The Avesta that exists today is still pretty long, but it was originally much, much longer. And I have a picture of an Avesta that I can show you. This is a pretty old copy. It's one of the older manuscripts. This is actually a codex. It's one of the older codices of the Avesta that we have. This one dates to around the 1200s AD. And I know that seems like pretty recent when it comes to historical stuff, but that's actually very, very old for a codex. So you can see here that this is a slightly different language than the one that we just saw earlier, because this again is not the old Avestan. This is the sort of modern Avestan language, but still has a lot of the neat little flowy parts that I think are pretty cool. So, the Avesta. Also, these neat little flowers and little sketches and stuff. I like that little sort of illuminated manuscript there. Cool stuff. All right, so 2 more things, and then we will wrap it up, because I want to talk a little bit about, you're noticing the flowers? Yeah. I want to talk about 2 particular symbols inside of Zoroastrianism that are very, very important. And the first one is fire, and the second one is water. And the Zoroastrians believe that all of the elements, the earth and the fire and the wind and the water, were originally made pure by Ahura Mazda. And they were made in that order, earth, air, fire, water. And fire and water were made later because they have a sort of special place in Zoroastrianism. Because these are... What about the 5th element? I don't have my multipass handy. I'm sorry. Earth, air, fire, water, heart, Captain Planet. Earth, air, fire, water, Ahura Mazda. Go, Zarathustra. But the earth and the air thing, by the way, sort of plays back into that idea of them being very ecologically minded, that everything in the earth was created by Ahura Mazda, and when he created it, it was pure, and we're supposed to keep it pure. Fire and water, though, are considered the 2 most purest things. Most pure things in most purest is double qualifier. I shouldn't have done that, sorry. 2 of the purest things that you can get, though. And fire and water are both going to play very important roles in religious ceremony and in the very physical concept of going to a temple. The oldest temples that we have that are still around from Zoroastrianism all look something like this. This is called the Ateshka Fire Temple, and it is in Azerbaijan. It's pretty old. The version that exists right now was probably built back in the 800s AD, but it's at the site of a temple that had been there for much, much longer, probably going all the way back into the 300s or 400s BC. This is one of the oldest still standing, what we might call ancient fire temples, but they're not all gone. This guy, and here you can see the Frawar again. I can zoom in a little bit. Here above the door, you see our Yazada with our eagle motif. They are referred to very frequently as fire temples, but this one's important. This one is a place called Yazd, and in Zoroastrianism, there are I think 8 or 9 temples that still claim to be what you might consider original temples. And that's sort of there's a word for them that they use to sort of designate them as original temples. But what is important that sort of qualifies them as this is this stuff. This is Ahura Mazda and the Goblet of Fire. This is the central part of any temple. You're going to have a flame because fire is sacred. And this particular fire is the one inside of the Yaz temple. And according to the Zoroastrians themselves, that same fire has been burning now for almost 2,500 years. And they never let it go out, and they constantly put fuel on it. And that's an important thing. Like the concept of keeping the fire burning is a really important idea. And these original temples, there's only one of them left in Iran, is that one, the Yazd temple. There are, I think, 7 or 8 of them in India, because there's Zoroastrians in India as well, that can claim that their fire has never gone out. So that makes them sort of like an original temple. But this fire is important because, again, it's a pure element. We all know, like, the elements are going to be pure. We talked about that. But if you do prayer, any Zoroastrian prayer has to have fire present. You have to have some version of fire around you. And this could be, we didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. Yeah. Oh, I could have made "we didn't start the fire" as, oh, that would have been a good one. I completely boned on that one. I missed it. We didn't start the fire. That would have been a great one. I still like Say No to Druj. So if you do prayer in a Zoroastrian faith, you have to have fire present. Now, in what can only be a nod to modern convenience, light bulbs have been considered okay as fire. So if you just have a light on while you're praying, they're going to let you go. But most people are going to have candles or something like that. And when you go to the temple, there's always going to be a fire in the temple. And fire is the element that is seen as the purveyor of wisdom. So you gain wisdom through fire. It's an electric torch, exactly. And people in Europe call flashlights torches for that kind of reason. But there's also the water. And in front of the Yazd, there's that big pool of water. Water is always going to be present in the temple. And it's very central to most of the ceremonies. There's a ceremony called the Yasna ceremony, which is something that happens at every single meeting of a Zoroastrian temple. It involves several different steps of preparation. There are elements of plant life that are involved. There's kind of a washing ceremony that's involved. There's pressings and stuff like that, and then the stuff gets put into the fire. But that's the fire and the water. They're always there, and they're very central. Water is considered the origin of wisdom. So wisdom sort of comes from water, and then it's brought to us by fire. And if you think about this sort of metaphysically or symbolically, and then you compare this to the concept of, or their idea of Frascio Coretti, we are born from water, right? And we are purified by fire, and the fire of the molten river of metal is what brings us wisdom, and we recognize that what we've done is wrong. So this is sort of, again, one of those like micro level concepts that also gets applied to a macro level. Also, water is convenient in the temple in case that fire gets out of control. Yeah. A lot of the modern temples have propane running the fire. And there are fire temples in America. Kyle, there's a Zoroastrian fire temple in Houston. I would love to go see it. There's another one in, I think there's one in Chicago, and I think there's one in New York City. Water is the origin of wisdom. Is that where the term take? Ha 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 ha. No, I don't think that's where it comes from. I don't think that's where it comes from at all. Oh, Kyle. That was a good one. I'll tip my hat to that one. All right, ladies and gents, that is going to wrap it up for me. Thank you all for being a little bit more patient. I know I ran over time, but I really like this stuff. It's some of my favorite, some of my favorite religious beliefs of the ancient world, and still modern. There are still people, doing this stuff today. So, all right. So I am wrapped up. What about you all? FYI, we don't care that you run over. I know. I mean, I just try to be cognizant of the fact that you all probably have other things that you might want to do. I know bits and pieces about the things you talk about, so it's nice to see where it comes from. Yeah, that's kind of the whole idea. That's what I like. The idea here behind Adventures in History is to help us put the pieces together, right? Human beings are the same since the beginning, and the stuff that we have now comes from places in the past. And it doesn't have to be super boring. We can talk about molten liquid metal rivers that burn the wicked, right? And I can share with you the fortune of the channel. We have some new people in the show, so let me share with you the fortune. We all have a lot more in common than it seems. And this is an actual fortune from a fortune cookie that I got. So it has to be right. All right. So that's all for me. What about you all? Anybody want to redeem some points or ask some questions or bring up some topics? I'm going to take this opportunity to head over to see who is around, to see if we're going to drop our chat in somewhere on a raid. Ooh, lots of options. Lots and lots of options. Okay. Lots of people streaming on a Thursday night. All right, so I'm not seeing anything pop up. So I guess that means that we are ready to potentially do a raid. Oh, now you're going to make me do more Star Treks. Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek Discovery. Well, this one's going to be very, very easy, and I feel like I might need to refund you your points because I have never seen a single episode of any of those series. I have not seen any of Voyager, any of Enterprise, or any of Discovery. I know nothing about them. I know that I don't know nothing about them. I know that Scott Bakula was the captain on one of them, but I could not tell you which one he was the captain on. Yeah, I stopped watching after Deep Space Nine, man. Star Trek sort of lost its shine for me. I liked Deep Space Nine, but I have not seen any of those. Can one of our mods figure out how to refund Kyle those? Or Kyle, would you like to submit another rank 3? Because I can't rank any of those. I don't have any exposure to them. I don't even know what order they came in. Enterprise wants it Star Trek. The KP, I think you have to do it through Mod View. I don't know if that works on the phone app or not. Or we could just remember that Kyle has a free rank 3 that you can cash in at any point. I think if we are looking at the screen, it's somewhere on like either the far left-hand side or the far right-hand side, and it shows like channel activity, and then you can click a button to like deny something, or we can just say that Kyle has a free one if you want. Left side looks like a clock. I've never actually done it before. So I know what Kyle does is he spends his channel points and then refunds them to himself. I'm just joking. I don't think Kyle actually follows the Druj and deceives everybody in that way. All right, let's see what we got going on. We've got Kirk Shannon streaming tonight. Looks like he's doing some work in the sketchbook. We've got Cat Videos, who we just raided on Tuesday, so let's not double raid. We've got 8 p.m., who is once again working on his three-eyed deer. He is now putting lots of stuff into the horns. There's now like a frog in the horns that looks like he's smoking a pipe, and a fish. Okay, works for me. We've got Cave Geek, who was just in a moment ago. He is currently working on what appears to be a map of Middle-earth. Yep, he is working on Arnor right now. Interesting. And we've got Day Dragon, who is streaming. Pipe Smoking Frog. Do I know Rob Teaches? I don't know Rob Teaches. And Day Dragon is, I guess, just getting set up. So I don't know exactly what she's up to. 3X in a dog. Thrakozog? Any ideas? We've got 1 vote for 8 p.m. and the pipe smoking frog and the three-eyed deer. Susan? Now you're just being rude. That's from a Tick episode, by the way, everybody. The Tick was such a great cartoon. One of my favorites. All right, so we've got 1 vote for 8 p.m. Anybody else have an opinion? Anybody else? No. Okay. You have to run, but you'll raid whoever, then peace out. You're cool with anything. All right, let's go raid 8 p.m. We haven't raided him in a bit. Start the raid. All right, so I just hit the button. We are going to load up the raid. Thank you all for hanging out tonight. I really appreciate it. We are going to be back again next week with another Tuesday. This is the 3rd Tuesday in a row. Normally we take those off, but I had people burning the 10K points to drop the viewer request streams. So next week we will do another viewer request, which is metallurgy. It's a little bit of an outside of the box kind of topic, but I think it's going to be interesting. I'm going to get some neat pictures to show everybody. So show up on Tuesday for metallurgy. Next Thursday is actually something that I'm also very excited about. We're going to talk about the religion of Jainism, because I don't think a lot of people know about what Jainism is, and it shows up at this time. So hey, why not? Okie doke. So I'm going to hit up the out sign. Thank you all very, very much. I'll see you all next time.